we shut this door, if everyone that's going to be here is here.
Not here, raise your hand.
Is there anyone here who would like to use the public comment period? Anyone here would like to make a public comment? Anyone like to make a public comment? We will close the public comment period. Call the meeting of the Tuesday, October 19th, 2021, Olmsted County Board of Commissioners meeting to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we will move on to the consent agenda. Approve the county board meeting minutes for October 5th, 2021. Approve agreement to transfer jurisdiction and right-of-way. Oh, thank you. Accept the 2022 Towards Zero Death Enforcement Grant Award. Approve county acquisition of tax forfeited parcel 64.02.44.021.980. Approve revocable license agreement for 1925 48th Street Northeast. Approve to establish county state aid highway CASA 35. Revoke a portion of county state highway CASA 35. Approve quit claim deeds to transfer jurisdiction and right-of-way. Approve to enter into professional services agreement with SRF Consulting Group Incorporated for SP 055-644-001. Approve gambling permits for Viola Gopher Count Incorporated. Authorize county attorney to sign grant contract agreement for, quote, Crime Victim Services 2022.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Now we move on to our regular agenda. The first decision items is we have a guest today, John Wade. Introduce him, Mr. Geeson. Looks like it.
It looks like a good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I'm Pete Geeson, Deputy Administrator with Physical Development, and Mr. John Wade is here. He doesn't need an introduction, but as you know, the President of the Rochester Area Economic Development Incorporated, and he's here to share a proposal that he has for the Commissioners, in particular, in line with the recent direction around our solid waste visioning work, particularly as it would relate to two of our properties. The one would be Energy Park and the solid waste visioning work, and the second would be the statement of interest that we would discussing to propose early next year for the former Seneca property. So Mr. Wade is here to present and answer any of your questions.
Welcome, Mr. Wade.
Take this?
Yes, you can take that.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I want to also especially recognize Greg Wright and Ken Brown, who also serve on the Ready board. We've had others that have served on the board, but they are good members, and we very much appreciate their involvement and engagement with Ready. So thank you to them, and also thank you to Heidi and Pete, Wilfredo and others. We've had a lot of involvement with Olmsted County in the last couple of years as we partnered with you on the distribution of a sizable amount of grants that have gone out. And you've got a really wonderful team of professionals. So it is really nice to be able to work with them, and I'm grateful for that. The mission of Ready is to retain and grow and diversify the economy. And we attempt to do that through a number of different funds, a number of different activities. We have structured funds that we invest in businesses as well. We work with a number of the communities also within the county, primarily Chatfield and Stewartville and Byron and Pine Island on their economic development needs and support those efforts. And we believe that that will be a growing relationship in the months and years to come. One other note prior to my comments related to the proposal, we have hired a new economic development director at Ready, in part because of our work more broadly in the county and beyond as well. But the primary focus of Kirk Boostrom is how it's pronounced. It looks like Bustrom, but it's Boostrom, will be to aid in the work that we're going to be talking about. He has a master's degree in GIS sciences. He is a CPA, which is important in our work. We have a number of, as I said, funds we are engaged in and involved in. And certainly we have a strong fiduciary responsibility to both the public and the private sector as we invest those funds. So we believe that he will be, and he has a great deal of experience as well with deed and other areas of the state which are particularly beneficial to us. And we're very glad to have him. He started today. It would have been my intention to have him here, but it didn't quite work out for that. But we will meet him in the future, and I think that his background will be very complementary to your wishes and working collaboratively with your staff. So specifically, we've talked to your administrative leadership about how we could support the continued growth and development of some of the strategic assets of Olmsted County, particularly Energy Park and the Seneca site. It is not that we propose a particular outcome, but rather partner with the county. I've been briefed on what sounds like a really wonderful and wise visioning process, that we would be any way that we can collaborate or support that process, we will do that. But we also understand that your property is also strategic to the overall economic growth and diversification of this economy. And so that is part of our mission and part of some of the deliverables that we believe we can bring to the table, in addition to what we do on a regular basis related to the growth and retention and development, diversification of our overall economy. Just to emphasize some of the points that perhaps you've already had discussion about, but what our strengths are and what we bring to the table in this collaboration is understanding the market and marketing the properties directly to interested businesses, developers, and partners, connecting with entities in alignment with Olmsted County's board vision. And we not only would work hand in glove with your staff, but also with your visioning process, and entirely respect it, and all of any of decisions would come to you anyway, ultimately. Acting as a liaison between the market and Olmsted County leadership. We do that on a regular basis on a number of different developments here today. Oftentimes, we are the first point when a business comes into Olmsted County or looks at developing in this area, and that involves site selection and a number of different things related to some of the services that the county already provides. Conducting studies, potentially including economic development, fiscal, tax base, and community development considerations. Convening, coordinating, facilitating discussions and meetings between staff and outside parties. And all of the activities that we're talking about are scalable. So we have the tools in place to support the county, and we can scale that depending upon your visioning and your direction to where you want this to go. This is not our plan. Our plan is to support you and the administration of Olmsted County. Coordinating and managing identified economic development projects, including but not limited to project planning and financing. And we are proposing a one-year contract. And should we go over that allotted commitment, we can amend the contract later, but we do intend with our new economic development director to allocate 50% of his time, 50% of his time to this work that we are talking about. Both the build out of Energy Park, as well as possibilities for the Seneca site, as well as other GIS activities that we know are necessary in Olmsted County, because we don't have a good list of developable shovel-ready space. And oftentimes, the senator knows that the state wants those projects, they want to know where that land is. They want to know where they can develop. And we have a lot of good resources, both in the public and private sector side, but we want to do a much better job of putting that together so that it makes a lot of sense to the outside community as well as ours when they come looking to develop. So again, the overall objective is to work entirely collaboratively with you, the governance division, and the administrative division of Olmsted County to advance your goals related to economic development, simply put. I'd welcome any questions. We did advance also last year's, as I mentioned, annual report and a quarterly report, the most recent. The next quarterly report will be out in about 3 weeks. We just got all that data in from the third quarter. There's a little lag time in doing that, and then we produce that.
Okay, so for the public that is watching this and may not know what READY stands for and how you're supported and funded, could you do that
Happy to.
in a minute?
Sure.
So
It is Rochester Area, that's fair. The Rochester Area Economic Development, Inc. It was founded some 36 years ago with the goal and objective to expand the base business economy. And we have done that in a myriad of different projects, which are cited on our website. I encourage anyone to take a look at ready.com. It's quite comprehensive on our past work. And I'm happy to talk too about any of the work we have done currently that I made. There was also an attachment to that earlier, and it was only sent out about an hour and a half ago, so I apologize for that. But some of the other funds that we are looking at, a secondary capital fund. We currently have something, Southern Minnesota Capital Fund, that we invest in startup businesses. And we are looking at a second round of, that's a $2 million fund to invest into businesses. And we do that. And we're looking at a secondary fund. We are funded. We're also involved in a real estate investment fund that more details will be coming in the next month or so on that. We are funded primarily from the private sector. Olmsted County, the city of Rochester, and the majority of the neighborhood communities also invest in us. But as a percentage of our budget, it is certainly well more than half is private sector invested in our activities. And of course, we are also supported, I guess it may go without saying, by Mayo. We appreciate that partnership as well, and I think that's an interesting point, only that not only do we appreciate their support, but they're very committed to the diversification of the economy. And while we are grateful to have that heavy dependence in healthcare, we are heavily dependent in healthcare. And we continue to work collaboratively with DMC and others to bring business here. And that's kind of what our mission work is. So I'm happy to talk more about any of those areas that we're involved in.
that's good. I think the public will appreciate knowing that. And so now you've said what you want to do. You want to have someone, your new person, Kurt, is that his first name? Kurt Booster?
Boostrom.
Boostrom.
Yeah.
Boostrom.
It's new for all of us. Yeah.
Will donate, will dedicate about 50% of his time.
Right.
Towards the
Partnership.
development partnership with Olmsted County.
And we will also, that does not limit our resources to just his service. We also have, which the county is very well aware of, Sean Williams, who has been instrumental in our the distribution of your funds. So he will continue to be involved, actively involved, frankly, with our work as well.
It would be helpful to you to have an idea of what the vision of the board is as well, so you're not looking towards developing something that the board is not
Of course.
thinking about. And so you said, so this is I'm just going to start
Please.
the questions out. You said that you wanted to collaborate with us and help us. I don't know if the word is help us, but help you understand what the vision of the board is. How do you see that part of it happening?
Well, I think that the engagement, as we have been, as we have laid out here, and I'm also aware that the county has strong credentials in the visioning area, and we are happy to invest time and effort into supporting that work as it goes forward, so that we can develop a plan that would provide the best possible outcome strategically for the county. So it is, we would be serving you in order to get the best possible value and use out of those properties. But again, the decision-making all rests with you. We would participate in the process.
And some of that is in an email you just sent out, which some of us have been busy, so you
No
said
worries.
in the last hour and a half.
I apologize. The information that was sent to you in the last hour and a half was specifically about the last annual report and the second quarter, our most recent financials. We have under separate covering provided to the county the overall proposal related to supporting your work.
Okay, thank you. So now I will entertain questions, and feel free to.
Oh, can I just say one thing of thanks?
Sure you can.
The county brought forward, the county was approached to look at a Build Back Better grant request related to a number of different green energy related initiatives in southern Minnesota. And we have advanced that project that again was brought in part by the county, or it was made aware to the county. We have advanced it along with CETA and working with organizations like Southeast Minnesota Together and a myriad of others to advance a grant which is due today. That's why Sean Williams isn't here. That we are collaborating on with CETA to advance this grant process that would help build out a green energy infrastructure, including the work of the county and others related to that. I know that's not what we're here to talk about today, but I did want to thank you because it came really through the county, and we have followed up on that intent.
Questions?
Not questions, comments more than anything. I have I've been on Ready's board for a number of years. I understand the work they do to bring in both help emerging businesses, bring in businesses, help them find space, and so on. So it is a fundamental economic development tool that we don't have a very good handle on. We're really used to relying on the fact that Mayo is our big dog right here, and we sort of
by we you mean the county.
Yeah, the county, the city, I mean everything.
County.
So we have a couple of parcels of land, significant parcels that are proximate to the city, sewer, water, access to services, transportation, and so on. And we do not have the expertise or the staff to really start to imagine and activate those parcels. I think they are good strategic investments. They're wonderful, but they've been sitting there for a while now, and it is worth hiring a consultant that can bring ideas, proposals. I don't think that even we have a specific vision, nor I don't think could we come up with a vision that is 100% accurate or correct or responsive to the market necessarily. So we can always evaluate proposals that come in, but we have no idea how to find them. So this is, in my mind, as much a mining operation that says, what are the options? What are the possibilities? As opposed to all of us sitting around throwing yellow stickies at a wall saying, let's try to figure out what we should do with this. I don't know. I'm not in that world, not in that business. They have just hired a very competent individual with quite a history and expertise. So I would prefer, it's not a ton of money. Of course, it's money. But if we hired staff and made that kind of bricks and mortar decision, it would cost us far more. And ultimately, we'll run out of things to do. And that person will then leave because we can't keep them engaged or entertained in that manner. With a partnership and collaboration, I think we can achieve, and this isn't going to happen next year, it's going to take a few years. This doesn't happen overnight. But we need to get started and say, let's bring in some ideas, let's bring in some possibilities, and if it's obvious that this isn't going to work in this site, then we say so. I mean, we are the ultimate decision maker, but other than putting an ad in the paper, don't know what to do. Right? They can help us construct the request for information and start to bring in ideas. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for ways to strategically think about these properties, activate them over time, and say this is the right thing to do. The right thing to do for Seneca, which is close into downtown, and out at Energy Park. Right? So that's my whole goal in here, is to bring expertise to the table that we do not have and will not have. To do something with these properties as opposed to let them sit there another few years growing grass. So those are my comments. So I'm in favor of this. We will have more discussion. We're not voting on it, I don't believe, today, right? This is information.
Just discussion.
And so that's where I'm at with this. And so I have worn out my welcome.
Sure. Thank you. Commissioner Cascade,
Go ahead.
So,
Right? Do I warn out my welcome?
yeah, these new protocols that make us sometimes hard to hear. I think we all have to acknowledge that Olmsted County has no experience in the field of economic development. We have a lot of experience in a variety of ways, and I've sort of been surprised to discover how often other counties have an economic development function that's well defined and staff resources dedicated to economic development. We have had the good fortune of not needing to do that, and instead to respond to the economic development that has been occurring in the community. But we do know that some of some of the smaller communities in our region in our county are looking with a more directed eye. We also know, I remember, I think it was maybe my first year on the board where we had staff come forward with a conceptual model for Energy Park. And I remember my colleague Matt Flynn saying, "No, we don't need to do that now. It isn't the right time, and we should wait. This isn't going to go away." And then shortly thereafter, one of your predecessors, Gary Smith, spoke to the board, and he said, and maybe it was that same day, he said, "The asset of having 40 acres on the edge of Rochester is an amazing asset, and you really should take your time and do this really well." And we've taken our time. Now's the time to talk about how we do it really well. And I know that my colleagues are going to be a little bored with me here, but if we think about the 8 or 9 years we spent trying to come to an agreement on what the future of Graham Park will be, we did market analyses twice. We did master plans twice. We met with the high-end users. We met with community groups. We had an advisory committee to help us shape what would be respectful of where we've been and responsive to future needs of the community. And through that long process, we've built relationships. we built some agreements and we have some sense of what we're willing to do there and what we're not willing to do there. So that brings me to where we are with Seneca and Energy Park. So Energy Park, now we have our staff looking at what could be done there with some ideas of how to build out the whole range of resource recovery and environmentally friendly management of our waste stream. We have the potential, I guess, of some businesses who could benefit from that waste stream and add value. But again, we don't know how to do that work, and so we do need help. And I think there's a strong advantage to having a local partner who also has some accountability to the local community, has some history with the local community. And now I'm going to give you the big but. The big but is that we don't know how to do that work. And we don't really have a very clear vision to hand to you. And I would be more comfortable if we start out by being clear about what our vision is for Energy Park, or what we've had some loose conversations about Seneca. Do we, what's the best way to protect the public's interest, or advance the public's interest, or protect the taxpayer, or create new benefit to the taxpayer with that with the Seneca property? It's a little clearer about the Energy Park, a little clearer, but we're not really there yet. So I would appreciate it if you would talk about any projects Redi has done where you're in a similar situation, where you have a property with some potential, and the owner of that property needs guidance. I'm kind of thinking in the back of my mind about the biodiversity center, that downtown, when that was all being developed. But when that was all being developed, the city council wasn't that engaged in the conversation. And I'm hoping we learn from that experience that the county board should be engaged in the conversation. So I think we need to work with you. I don't think we haven't done our homework really yet. I don't know if you're the right person to help us do our homework on those two properties. And I think we also have to ask ourselves, what do we learn from other experiences? And how do we define our working relationship so that we're clear about what we intend to accomplish, and we have a way to measure, did we get there? So that's sort of a long-winded, but could you give us some examples of a similar situation where you were working with a local unit of government around a somewhat loosely defined opportunity, and what are the steps? What are the, and maybe that's for the next conversation of what are the steps which project are we going to start with? Because I don't think we can just say, well, whatever, you just tell us. I think we have to say Energy Park or Seneca, and then we need to ask you, what are the steps of the process, and how do we stay informed and or engaged, and how do we measure what progress is being made, so that we can think about what else needs to be done, what other assistance we need, what our future of relationship would be.
Thank you.
So one more thing. Your role is we are certainly engaged, but I think what we need is some help to direct our thinking along those lines. That's kind of my thought.
I'm sorry, with your mask, I missed a little bit of what you said.
Sorry. Hate this thing anyway. I think we just need that help to consultant to direct our thinking, right? And then we'll certainly be involved to help refine
the
that
opportunities
vision
that we
and
should
meet the
consider is what you're
opportunities,
saying.
but to help direct that, because that's where I think we just will flounder around forever.
I would just share to your specific question, and Commissioner, as you know, when you were in the Senate, and you were instrumental actually in one of those big projects, and that was the development of the Biobusiness Center, which was probably our largest that involved public-private partnership. I will just back up and say that whenever we have, and some of the board members are well aware of this, we had a issue mid last year with a major employer in the community that didn't have use for all of the property they had and needed help in staying here. We thought it was a strategic interest to the community to retain them. And in that case, just like in this case, we sat down really with our partners, and that included, in that case, the City of Rochester, Rochester Public Utilities, and Deed, and brought them to the table to address those concerns of that large company. And we were able to do so collaboratively. And that's really the big key to most of what we accomplish. Your example that you were involved in, interestingly, was one of those really great projects where the city ultimately owned the space. One large organization leased most of the space, and we put it together. We ready, along with those in the legislature that helped make that happen, direction from the city of interest, although it was largely advanced by Ready and some other business development folks that thought that was a good idea. And that it was advanced in partnership really with the city and certainly the legislature that made that possible. That's an example of how we did that together. I was on the other side of the house then, really on the chamber side, but was involved with Gary Smith and others that were strongly involved in that. I think what's interesting and what I've been, it's been very optimistic in my opinion to hear about is this visioning process and how we would vision this. It's not us visioning it. It's not you visioning it necessarily in this construct. It's us doing it together. And I really do talk nice about your staff behind their back as well as in front of them. And they are incredibly competent and capable. And any members of the commission, however you guys do that kind of thing, I'm open to. That we work together to establish what are those goals and objectives. What is that right visioning process? I just think it would be better if we did it together, rather than one doing it, coming back later, hiring somebody from somewhere else to run your meter, because we are absolutely vested in your success, because it's our success as well. And so I think that that's just one example where it was a very large public-private partnership. We've had others. We've had a lot of projects over the many years, but in private land use development, as well as working very closely with the municipal units of government, and not the least of which, what was referenced, there is a growing need of services. Commissioner Flynn and I were at a meeting in Chatfield where we talked about some other possible tools that could be co-developed that might help those communities continue to grow as well. And part of this work would also involve that. But specific to that, I think the best example is the Biobusiness Center that quickly comes to mind. And that the plan would be, I don't want to prejudge what the plan would be, because what I do know is, and I'm convinced that if we work collaboratively with your administration and this governing body, we will come up with, I don't know what that's going to be, but we will come up with a meaningful plan that you can make decisions about. So you would instruct it, you could be a part of it, certainly the staff, us and our resources, and other resources that we need to deploy and bring in to help model that. So I'm just kind of excited about that. I think it's got all the right pieces to get you what you want, and certainly the people of Olmsted County will benefit from it for a long time to come. And we're not in a rush. We just should do it together. Kind of my thinking.
Yeah,
Commissioner Wright.
yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Wade, I haven't been on the board all that long. It's been in over 30 years, so I only recently saw some of the things. But maybe you can comment on how Ready has changed a little bit over the years. And you know that I brought these issues before the board before, is that we had been focused, in my opinion, a lot on medical, but you brought to the board the need to look at county-wide, not just within the city of Rochester. And then you've talked about diversity, but including in your diversity, I brought to the attention of the board that we need diversity of employment for all kinds of people, not just people with degrees and that would help the people of Olmsted County. So maybe you could comment on how Ready is doing
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
Thank you. We also administer the city's Economic Development Fund. That was the legislature in 2012 through the sales tax authorized $5 million. We also had another fund that was $5 million for the neighboring communities. Not without controversy, but they spent it really well. And that fund, as we invest in companies with that economic development fund, and I think this may be what you're referencing, 54% has gone to women and minority-owned businesses. I'll also commend Olmsted County that when we went forward with the grant process hand in hand with Olmsted County, it was very important to the county, it was important to us that we do even little things like putting it in 7 languages and arranging a lot of additional support services so that everyone would understand that those opportunities were out there. And we addressed any possible questions in most languages, and some I wasn't even aware of, and the amount of the translation. And Olmsted County was unique in that. That didn't happen in Hennepin County. And as recently as a week ago, I was looking at a deed application, and they're great partners, but they didn't have 7 languages that you could also, an IMAA standing by to specifically counsel people. So there's diversification on a number of fronts that is important, but we also have made a significant commitment to BIPOC development. We are involved in, on the front end of economic development as well through our partnership with the Collider. And we also partner very closely with the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, which is part of the SBA. They're integrally important to us, and we work together with them. And all of us are focused on making sure that all people, not just ones that look like me or have access to resources, get the resources they need so they can start a business and grow a business, and that we can be ready to provide the funding to support them. And that's a big deal to us. The other point, Commissioner, I think you're making is that I recognized early on, I've spent a lot of years around here and have had a lot of wonderful experiences seeing the growth and development of communities within the county and their commitment to growth and economic development. And it should come as no surprise to anybody. I saw a heat map not too very recently, you may have seen it, but it shows our growth in Olmsted County and where the population growth is. And there is a lot of growth in the neighborhood, and they're committed to growing. They want more tools to be able to grow. And we are very interested in not only partnering with them individually, but Olmsted County to make whatever reasonable tools could be made available to them, specifically outside of the city limits of Rochester. And that would be a different way to look at supporting that specific growth and development of whether it's Chatfield, you and I got into that. We heard those needs. I know that the administrator certainly is aware of that, and we're working together. I met with 2 of those city administrators this morning early to talk about some ideas on how we could advance a model to the county. So there are a number of ways that we want to diversify, not only diversify outside of healthcare, and we do that in a number of different ways, but also how we diversify opportunity for this diverse population we have and really put our money behind it. And I think you have seen that firsthand. Commissioner Brown has seen it. We publish all of our data, all of our material, who we're supporting, and we will continue to do that, and are also involved in a cultural center that's being floated and advanced in the community. And we will serve that as well.
Any other questions? I just had a question.
Please.
This is my teacher background. So you talked about deliverables, and how would you keep us informed of all that?
Yeah, I think it's twofold, really. We are happy to provide any regular reporting or discussion with this body, which isn't hard to do, but also
It is hard to
no,
do?
it's not hard to do.
Okay.
And I think that, but primarily, our work would be closely tied with your administration's work. So that team over there, I hope they're still there.
They're still there. They're
Yeah,
listening.
would be hand in glove through this process. We wouldn't be doing anything with Olmsted County's assets without the full engagement and involvement of Olmsted County. So the administration would be, we would be working together with them, basically. I hope they're nodding, I'm not sure.
They're actually raising their hand.
Oh, okay.
Madam Chair, I would just reiterate that should the board choose to move forward with a contract with Ready, I think that Pete and I and the others, Wilfredo and others, would see this as we would just work hand in hand. That would allow us to hand some of the work off that we don't have expertise in
Yeah.
to John and Ready. But I can see where he would just work with us with our regular processes if it's about updating you on their progress. You know, we have many different ways that we communicate with the board, so we would just work with that. I also wanted to comment that I thought it was a good idea that we work together, have Ready, should you decide to go forward with this, we would involve Ready in that visioning process. Doesn't mean that Ready needs to lead the visioning process. I still think that we have that expertise in-house, but having them there to try to answer with expertise the questions that staff simply don't have. Like, gee, do you think it's a good idea to bring X, Y, or Z industry? Oh my gosh, we don't know. We just don't have that expertise. But Ready does, or if they don't know the answer, they'll know how or where to go to get that answer. Where for us, we could get it for you eventually, but it's really not something that any of us are well versed in. So I would see it, John, you tell me if this is fair or not fair, but I would see it as a extension and augmentation to the staffing in terms of how we would operate.
Now, we really see ourselves, if you will, as a vendor and you the customer. So they represent the customer. So I think that that's the approach we would take.
To help direct our thinking.
Yep.
And clarify some of the crazy things we might come up with.
And to identify real tools, once we decide that, to attract what we want to have there. And whether that's financing, whether that's land use, all of those other issues that will likely also come up through that process, but none of it would be a surprise to any of you. You will know as we go, or be involved in it. I'm great with all of it.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Madam Chair, if I could just add, Commissioner Brown said to help direct our thinking, and I would add to help staff some of the questions and ideas that commissioners have. You all collectively have a lot of mostly really good ideas, but we don't always.
I think
we don't always.
How diplomatic she did.
Pandering is the word I believe that comes to mind.
Anyway, but I do know that some of the times when I think, oh dear, I have no idea how to answer that, and I don't think anybody on staff does. I know that Ready would know how to answer that if they weren't immediately able, just knew off the top of their head. They have the right set of expertise. So,
So I'm just gonna, I have one more question
Yes, of
for you,
course.
John.
Being Sheila today or what?
Thank you.
Madam Chair, what was your question?
Kenny?
Was that a compliment?
I'll take it as comment. Was there a question that you maybe thought we would be asking you and we didn't?
I would echo your administrator. I think you've been very thorough.
Yeah.
And asked many fine
Good
questions.
answer. Okay.
Madam Chair, just one
Yes.
other thing. I want to thank Ready and you, John, for working on the CETA proposal. If that grant is done, and with your help, I'm sure it has a much better opportunity for being approved. That's $5 million of planning for green energy products and businesses. And that's only phase one. The next phase, if that grant is approved, that's a possibility of $100 million, somewhere between.
It's highly competitive. So that's
Highly
why we didn't get into.
competitive. However, if we don't apply,
Spectrum.
Truly, and
we're
we're putting
out. So I
Lots of
appreciate your
time into
help.
the application
Yes.
and with the support of many organizations, but it is incredibly time consuming to put these things together.
Somebody told me that about a lottery ticket once.
You can't win the lottery if you don't buy a
Then again,
ticket.
somebody won.
Right.
But I appreciate your help on
Thank
that.
you.
Yes.
All right, John, you and I have gone back a long time.
40 years. Okay.
When things go good, everything's fine.
Yep.
But we've been through projects that have turned into disasters. The demands have been immense. Elk Run, the plastic company. Are you gonna bring forward companies that have the financial or the money, the resources to move ahead? Because Ken, Jim, and I, we were called many names. Because
Yeah,
we said no
that's
to
true.
some people, and
That's
we were
true.
the lowest form of life.
We didn't make them
We
happy.
were right.
You were right.
We were right,
Right.
and they fell up and it unraveled. That's my biggest concern. Will you bring that are legitimate businesses with resources, not these
Yeah.
grand schemes of kumbaya, everything goes right. I have no time for that anymore.
No, I think that the county acted wisely before, and it is not in our best interest to, those happen to be, I think in almost all those cases, people came from the outside and really had a big plan and we bought. Overall, there were some big buyers of that. I have absolutely no intention nor desire to bring anything before this body that is not sustainable and viable. And we did chase, and there's a lot of stories behind some of those projects.
You and I could write a book someday, I think.
And we did not go along with everything that
Most
Mr.
of
Burrell
our
brought to the city.
Most of our
and-
employees sitting out there were not involved in these great ideas. They
Mhm.
were great problems.
Right. We want to make, based on the visioning process, based on what we put together, and a correct RFP process, we want viable projects, and we will make sure that they are fundable and that they meet with these needs. I have no interest, Commissioner, in bringing forward anything
Well,
that is not sustainable.
Show me the money. They gotta show the money.
Absolutely.
This,
Oh, yeah.
This, again, these
Absolutely.
great ideas of
Yep.
Yeah.
your money.
Right.
No more time for that. And a waste of everybody's time.
Right. There are other resources that can be deployed depending on, obviously, the projects, and there are many state resources and others that sometimes are deployed to create new business, and we are certainly very interested, and we do utilize those funds. However, to your point, the business case has to make sense.
Right.
And and in my professional life and personal life, I'm kind of a believer in that. And I can assure you, whether you support this or not, and I certainly hope you do, based on what you've just said and my commitment back to you, we will bring you viable projects, working together, sustainable with the county.
Yep.
Actually, Commissioner Flynn just hit on the next area I was going to go, because it feels to me like there's, once you have out in the general public awareness that we're ready to take some action on a piece of property we own, a lot of people will come in with wild hair ideas of what they could envision, and whether or not they want us, even if it's just give us our land and we'll. It has to fit with what we see as the benefit to the broader community, not just that we have a piece of property that someone would like to develop.
Well, it comes down to, we have property, but the examples I said, we had some high-ranking public officials
Right.
demanding some really things from us, and we said no. And we were, I remember the days distinctly. We were like I say, we're the lowest form of life there was.
Ostracized.
And,
Well, you've survived.
well, we did the right thing, is what we did.
Yep.
So, again, I don't
Well,
want to
that's why I think we really need very clear criteria
Right.
of what, and that provides guidance then. So
And-
that when
and-
things come in that just don't fit the criteria of what the county board said we're willing to consider, you are the guy in the front that says, no, I won't take that forward because they're not going to consider it. I mean, that's there
Yeah,
still will be the ones that come over the transom, but I agree with you.
And there may be good ones too, but we're not putting a for sale sign out there and waiting for offers. It's going to be an orderly process that the board will know specifically. So when people come forward and say, well, how about a this or how about a that, we will run into that in a few hours.
Right, yeah.
But it is really about respecting the process, the resources, knowing what we can do and we don't want to do, and what kind of engagement we want to have. So absolutely, I am committed to that.
Okay.
Yeah, won't bring any bad deals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you
time.
very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yep.
all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Update on redistricting communications tools.
Hello, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Gretchen Williamson, and I'm the Communications Manager of the Olmsted County Policy Analysis and Communications Team. And with me today is Olmsted County Planning Director Ben Griffith. We're here to talk to you a bit this afternoon about our initial communications plans for the 2022 redistricting process. First, I just want to note that Olmsted County is collaborating with the City of Rochester as it relates to communications about redistricting. We built a solid partnership in the 2020 elections process to ensure we had consistent messaging throughout the election cycle. And we'll be building upon that solid partnership to create and distribute 2022 redistricting communications. Our joint communications team has created specialized logos to be used on all of our communications related to redistricting. We have a joint logo for use on joint city-county communications, yet separate city and county redistricting logos for those cases where the joint logo is not appropriate. These logos will be used on press releases, PowerPoint presentations, videos, and any other digital or printed collateral that will be required for this effort. Our joint city-county redistricting communications meetings kicked off about a month ago. Since that time, we've already developed a script and have put together a first cut of a what is redistricting or a redistricting 101 type of video. Our plan is to share that video through multiple city and county communications channels beginning in November. And we'll give you guys a preview of that video a little bit later in this meeting. We plan to distribute our first joint city-county redistricting press release tomorrow to officially kick off the public notification about this process and advise the community that our redistricting web pages are available on both our city and county sites where they can find more information. And in just a month's time, the Olmsted County GIS team within the planning department has pulled together a redistricting Olmsted ARC GIS hub site, which Ben Griffith will talk a little bit more about at this time.
Do the video first. Okay. So Teresa Blader in our GIS division has created a website, a hub site, similar to what was created for COVID. And I think all of y'all are familiar with that. And it's a way to disseminate a lot of information about a very complex topic that has a lot of moving parts, and right now has a lot of time in between now and when we actually get down to the business of drawing the lines on the map. So are we going to do that? Okay, perfect. So this is the, hang on a second. Can I have the mouse? What are you going to do? Is it remote?
That's not going to help.
No, I really like that. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought I was going to have a mouse to be able to do that. So there's a home page, for lack of a better. There's tabs at the upper right where you see what is redistricting, redistricting timeline, current district maps, and community input. It's very intuitive. It's very intuitive. It's so easy, even a planning director can do it. And I'm the guinea pig for Jan and her GIS folks. So if you see the maps where we have here from 2010 and 2020 with those numbers. I know y'all know those numbers very well. We've had increases, and there were increases across all of your districts. So that equates to now how do we balance that out going forward to balance out those districts. But the hub site has these tabs. There's interactive maps. You can zoom in, zoom out. There's a lot of information that's at your fingertips to be able to use. And there's also we have a basic survey that's embedded in the hub site right now. There's also ability to provide comments and feedback so we can collect that information. We use this very similar to what we did for the long range transportation plan. And I know y'all are familiar with that. We collected a lot of information. We collected a lot of comments over a period of time, and we were able to go through and sort through those comments that we received, group them according to category, and then go back and try to classify and address those as we move forward with the long range transportation plan. And I bring that, and I use that comparison because I know y'all are familiar with that, and that process worked extremely well. In previous years, we had been criticized for not gathering enough comments and not getting enough feedback. The story map, with the ability to collect those comments, with the ability to put a pin on a map and provide comments, made the difference, all the difference in the world. So now we're applying that to different applications.
Ben, do you mind if we just scroll back up and we can
Yeah.
show them the interactive map?
Perfect.
Right here, should we click right here? Tell us, right there, or on comment?
On the map, the numbers, are these
There we go.
census tracts that are represented on the map?
That's a good question.
Yep, click there, close that, and now go in and let's look at district, just pick one. There we go. Now try to click on that. And maybe you can just tell us what to do that would help them see. If we want to comment, we just click something.
See where the comment with the little flag, with the little flag above where it says comment, you click on that. There we go.
There we
Pops
go.
up, and you just go down and fill in the blank. There's some drop downs so that you can put in some standard comments, and then there's also areas where you can write as well. And then you hit submit, and those are collected so that we can then analyze those and see how we need to move forward.
Okay.
Now, there's several different maps that we've included on this because it's not just the commissioner districts. There's also a tab that shows the legislative districts. There's also one for the city districts. There's also one for the townships. I know the last couple of township officer meetings, there's been a lot of questions from the townships about redistricting and about elections as well. So it's on their mind just as much as it is yours.
So can we get to this?
I'm sorry?
Can we get, I don't have access to the hub, right?
On the redistricting page, it's on the website.
I'll send you a link right now.
Pardon?
I'll send you a link right now.
I think it went live yesterday, today? Today, okay.
Nice work, Jeff.
So it's out there.
I have a question, Mr.
Yes,
Griffin.
ma'am.
If you go back to one of the maps that said people powered,
Which one?
people powered map.
Yeah, I'm never thinking.
There. And the fair maps, this redistricting event, so is this part of that idea about that in the past things weren't fair? This isn't part of that fair redistricting thing, or is it?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioners, so this community input tab is basically anything related to community input. So the very first thing you're seeing there is redistricting events. And that is the event that is happening next Thursday at 7 p.m. that is sponsored by the League of Women Voters and the other sponsors you can see there. So that is basically saying, yes, Mr. Griffith will be participating in this League of Women Voters event, and that is the logo that they are using.
That's
is the
their
people
logo.
powered. It's their logo
that's
for
their
their
moniker.
event. Correct.
Okay.
Why do
So
we
then-
put that on there? I mean, people, we're acting like this is something that we've done illegally or done bad in the past. We've done a great job in the past 2 redistricts that we've been involved in. This is very frustrating to me. And also, the thing that is frustrating here to me is, you know, people want to put in their comments. Because they put in their comments, they think that that means that's the way it's going to be. I mean, we've done this twice in 20 years, and it's been extremely fair. This gives credence when you have that people-powered fair maps. That's saying that what has been done in the past is unfair. That's what that's saying to people, and that is so far from the truth. That really makes me unhappy because that is not true.
Madam Chair,
Somebody
Commissioner
needs
Beer,
to say that.
if you'd like us to take their particular logo off of
Yeah, I
that,
would.
we can. But I'd like to keep the event, if I may respectfully ask, because Mr. Griffith is speaking at the event, so we do want to
That's
publicize
fine.
that we're speaking at it.
But you're giving credence when it says people-powered fair maps. What that's saying is what we've done in the past is not fair, and that is not correct, and that
Understood.
makes me unhappy.
Understood. We can take that piece off if we're okay to just leave the information about the event.
Yeah.
Then the second piece of input is the map that you saw, which is the opportunity to click around and just pin on the map itself. And then the third piece is just basically open-ended,
I agree.
opportunity for input. We took these survey type questions from other counties that are using very similar processes around the country for basically a streamlined way to get general input, or for people, as you can see, the last one says sign up for future updates. So when we have a public hearing to review maps, for example, then we would send a notice to anyone who had signed up here to say, this is when the hearings will occur. So that's
all of this process makes it sound like we've done something wrong. Why doesn't anybody ever follow Olmsted County's process, which we did in 2000 and 2010, and we had no problems?
Madam
None.
Chair?
And why don't other people follow Olmsted County's process instead of going out? God, you're creating
Everybody
problems.
take a deep breath.
No, I don't want to take a deep
Yes,
breath.
it's not fair to treat staff that way.
I'm not treating
You
staff
are.
that way. I
You are.
am not. I'm saying that when you come up with these things and flash them up here, that isn't right. Before we've seen it, this is the first time I've seen this thing, and to flash it
This
up
is
on
the
the
first
screen.
time anybody's seen it.
Well, then you should look at it before you put it
Madam
out
Chair,
there.
Commissioners, we've had a lot of feedback from a lot of people about redistricting. We've had a lot of feedback from several of you. And so what has been done here, I'm actually pretty proud of this work to get good communication out about it. We absolutely agree, and we are carrying that message that what has been done in the past was fair. And we're following, in fact, that same process. But in order to it's not going to change people's opinion if we just sort of rail about it. We have to actually put out there the information and show people
Okay,
what's
well,
been done.
who
is
thought
okay.
it was a good idea to have the first thing that shows up, fair redistricting, people power?
Well, we do want it to be fair. That is a League of Women
You're
Voters.
saying that it wasn't fair in the past.
No, I'm not.
That's what that says.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
The thing is that this is the League of Women Voters logo. So your issue, I think, Commissioner Beer, is with the League of Women Voters that they may unintentionally imply something that we don't think is accurate.
No,
And
my
then-
issue is you're putting words in my mouth, Commissioner Wright.
I'm
My
sorry.
issue is this is an Olmsted County thing, and so we put the League of Women Voters, their fair redistricting stuff as the header on it. That's my issue.
Okay, all right. I
We will
understand.
take that logo off, but the idea of having events around redistricting listed here is for the public's benefit so they can see here's all kinds of opportunities to learn about it, to give
Right.
input. That's the idea.
Right, I think the important point there is that we're putting this out there so that they know it is fair.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we're giving them information that they can look at.
Yep, you got it.
Agreed.
I was just gonna add just a couple of other things. The redistricting timeline, you can see that tab again, just informational. And then it's probably not gonna work very well right at this moment in this setting, but when you see the link, the current district maps, yeah, there's a version of the timeline. And then Clara, the next tab, the current district maps. Someone had asked the question about, there we go. Now you can see the blue boxes down at the bottom. You can click on each of those boxes to see the map that's unique to each of those different redistricting processes.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
That's good.
That's very good to see and to educate people, and it's good to tell about the events.
Huh.
I do have agreement with Commissioner Beer in terms of I also find it disturbing to see the thing that keeps saying fair redistricting, because I do think there's something in there that implies it wasn't fair in the past, and it certainly was fair in the past. So, and I think some of this fair redistricting doesn't have anything to do with the county level. It has a lot more to do with state and federal redistricting, but we get included in that.
Right.
So we're not.
No.
I hope this wasn't offensive to you, or that, because it's. I understand Commissioner Beer expresses himself loudly, and others of us do it softly, but it really is hard to not take it personally on the county level. So that's what that's all about.
Thank you,
That's
Madam
why
Chair.
I asked you to put the map back up, because I saw that, and also it triggered something for me.
Right, I agree. I think, and part of the difficulty in social media right now, as we all are aware of, is misinformation. So your help with your department counteracts that misinformation, so they get correct information.
Yep, this is great, all this
So
stuff.
that same section where that event is listed now is where I would foresee we would actually put our board meeting note. I mean, we have our board meeting page, of course, but we would also say this is the meeting at which, the maps will actually be discussed. So that's what that's intended to be.
Good.
Can I just point out one mistake on this map is that we have, go back to it.
Which one?
I'm having
School
trouble
one.
hearing you, Commissioner.
School district?
Last one you had, school one. See, bottom right has St. Charles School District when it's really Chatfield School District, I think.
Oh, it's mislabeled?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
there's two St. Charleses. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
mislabeled.
thank you.
To,
Yeah, I think, Jan and Sandy are here too. We'll take that back to the GIS team to update that.
to
So yes, this has not, as we said, it just went live. The press release will go out tomorrow. So if there's other things, we'll take care of that logo. If there's other things that you see that you would like corrected or changed, please let us know. Obviously, as Mr. Griffith said, it's going to be a long time before we actually get to the county's process, but we wanted to get this out to the public before that League of Women Voters event next week, so that we're sharing it more broadly, not just with people who happen to attend that one Zoom session, so that the public is aware, oh, this is coming up and this is the place where I can find information.
So you hear some frustration, and we all get emotional on this, and unfortunately there are some individuals in our community that have mischaracterized very badly, and even to the point of accusing previous planning director of gerrymandering. This is when we are all one consolidated planning, which we still should be. Another topic. But unfortunately, that gets some air, and it has attracted, as our chair has said, interest beyond what it deserves. It was done appropriately, fairly, according to the law, according to statute, with everyone, and we will do that again, and continue to do that. So the reaction is valid, and they should not, I agree, should not be highlighted in any way to begin to misrepresent what we are doing. What they think they might do or should do is, it's not irrelevant, it's just not terribly insightful. If you ever looked at that other proposal, you would find it to be highly gerrymandered. Enough said.
So, Madam Chair, I have a really picky, unique question. It goes way back to one of the first maps where we're wondering if you have funny numbers on these maps. If we can go way back to the beginning of the presentation. Are these census tracts that are being shown on this map? I may not be the only person who wonders what we're really seeing, and I keep seeing the same little carve out around Stewartville. There's this little triangle that comes up. I think that's a census tract map.
I think she's talking right here. Yep, the main page.
This
right.
one. Wait,
Scroll
go
up.
back. Scroll up. Okay, so these two
These
maps,
two.
these are showing us census tracts. Is that correct? Okay. Um, it would be good to know that, so, because they're such strange little
So if you click
configurations.
on them, it says census
Yep,
tract.
if you click
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, that's
Top.
right.
Census tract.
Population
Oh, by
by
census
census
tract.
tract.
Okay,
tract.
thank you.
Census
We went
tract,
through it quickly and I didn't
census
see
tract.
that.
Right.
You're right here. It says by census tract.
Does this then, when, I guess I can do the math myself. So when I click on an area, it'll show what that area
Oh,
is,
that's
population
interesting.
is as compared to the other area and another map.
Right, correct. That's what's hard about doing it in this space is you can't quite click around the way you would on your own computer. But yeah, things pop up as you hover and then you get more information about each.
And will these maps be available, these census tract maps, because they do have so much demographic data out of the census in another location besides this redistricting section? I just think it would be a handy reference for people writing grant proposals or people looking at, I just think it's it's a useful source of demographic information.
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner Cascaden, we haven't talked about whether we would put it here specifically with redistricting or more generally under our government section, where it's
Right.
just about the county. We do have data there now on 2010, so we would be replacing. Well, I
So
think
for
we
instance,
did already replace
I'm
2020.
changing the subject here, but the food stability or food supports report that was out relied on census tract data. And if they were going to be coming forward and saying, or the age-friendly community, the census tract data, I mean, I think there's some places in terms of planning or assessing need, or even like when we did immunizations to try and reach the hard to reach, we did that by census tract data. So having the 2020 census information available
Okay.
would be useful.
Yeah, we can talk about
this
options
data.
for that. Yeah, where to put it, yeah.
Madam Chairman, as the data becomes, as the more detailed data becomes available, that will be something that we want to do. One of the examples that I know I've used, I know in talking with Heidi in the past, is Dave Dunn uses housing data. Graham Briggs uses public health data.
Right.
There's all these different sources, and there's the from the Census Bureau. There's the way that data is gleaned out of the releases that come from the Census Bureau is where we want to get to, and that's generally about the third release that comes out. We're just now past the first release.
Yeah.
So in the interim, I believe, I don't know if Gretchen or Deborah talked about the American Community Survey. Some grant applications allow that data to be used, and some say no, it has to be the census from the last census. So, do you use 2019 ACS data or do you use 2010 census data? So it's very confusing, and obviously you want to have the most recent information, but some of these grant applications just require that you fall back on that Census Bureau data.
Well, and I just think as a friendly thing for us as a county, since we have it, to have it available on our website, then anyone in the community who's making a grant application will have ready access to it. They don't have to think about where do I find it. And I know when we were doing the compass points, the assessment, that's one of the things the not-for-profit community told us is very helpful to have a central location for that kind of data.
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner Cascaden, we can talk more about where to put that and how to make it accessible. I think the next layer of data comes out in November. So then that starts to get into race and age and the, further refinement of the data.
This is going to be very useful, the whole site, but this data, thanks to the staff who put this all together.
Absolutely, thank you. So two other just quick things to close with. We have so two other things we're planning, the League of Women Voters. It's also several other, I keep saying that, but it's actually the library, the Chamber of Commerce, IMAA, the NAACP, and the Diversity Council are all sponsoring this event next week. And so Ben Griffith will be speaking along with Heather Hayer from the city of Rochester. And then they have someone talking about the state process as well. I don't know whether there will be additional events after that or other sponsors. Certainly we'll just keep an eye out for those. But we are planning what we're calling a toolkit, which is basically just the material you see here on the website available in a hard copy format. Very limited number of items, but just to get at the accessibility for anyone who does not have internet access, they would be able to go to here the government center or to the library, for example, and pick up a toolkit. But it's basically just the material that's on the website, in a hard copy form. And then the other piece that we're working on with the city, they want to do a series of listening sessions so that they understand various concerns with the communities of interest groups. And so we have talked about collaborating on a limited number of those with them, but we would focus more, I mean, we would obviously participate in Rochester, but we would also focus on non-Rochester areas that are not going to have that opportunity for input. So that is something we're just discussing right now, how that might work. And all of that would be in advance of the part of the process where the maps are actually drawn. So I think with that, unless there are other questions, if you'd like to see the video, we can do so. If you have concerns about time, we can skip
It's a
it.
fun video. You should show it to us. It doesn't take long. So well
Okay,
done.
yeah, it's about 2 minutes. Are there any other questions before we play it, though? Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Participated in the U.S. Census survey. The U.S. Census is taken every 10 years and is an official count of people living in the U.S. It provides detailed information on things like race, geography, education, public health, and so much more. Now that the results for the 2020 census are in for Olmsted County and the city of Rochester, we can now begin the process of redistricting for our area. So what is redistricting and why should it matter to you? Redistricting is the redrawing of electoral district boundaries every 10 years to account for population shifts and growth over the previous decade. Redistricting impacts all levels of government, including the U.S. House of Representatives, the Minnesota State Legislature, local school boards, city councils, and county boards. The names you see on your August 9th primary ballot in 2022 could also be impacted because of the changes to district boundaries. The first step in the process in Minnesota is the state legislative districts. If the state legislature is unable to reach an agreement on redistricting by the deadlines outlined in the statute, a judicial panel appointed by the Minnesota Supreme Court steps in to redraw the lines. Over the next few months, you may hear about different opportunities to participate in the local redistricting process that follow the state, such as listening sessions with groups that make up our unique landscape. The Minnesota Office of the Secretary of State provides guidelines to local jurisdictions, which include the required deadlines. Not all districts will need to be redrawn. There is specific criteria that outline when that's necessary. March 29th, 2022 is the deadline for redistricting municipal precincts and wards where it's appropriate. And April 26, 2022 is the deadline for all other districts to be completed. That includes county commissioner districts, school board member districts, and soil and water conservation districts where appropriate. Following redistricting, the election process can begin with candidate filing and primary election dates, which also follows a schedule determined by state statute. We want you to be informed about the redistricting process. A free redistricting toolkit can be found at several area locations, like the Rochester Public Library. That free toolkit, along with other information regarding redistricting, can also be found on the City of Rochester and Olmsted County websites.
A little disappointed I didn't make the casting call. It stopped
That was
right
great.
here.
Very,
It was by
very
design.
nice. I love that scene with the corn tower in the bottom and looking at that great Seneca property.
All right.
This was actually a good opportunity to get some good footage. Nick got lots of great shots of outside of Rochester too,
Yep.
so we can use that for lots of things.
Yep, that was very informative, nice.
I would just call out that is part of your investment in communications team in the last couple of years. They're amazing. This is the kind of product you get when you have an amazing communications team like
Well
that.
done, well done.
So
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you for that. And now we have board and committee reports. Any, let's see, we're gonna start with Commissioner Brown.
For you, I have nothing.
Nothing. Commissioner Tyne?
Nothing of note.
Okay. Commissioner Flynn?
Nothing, no.
Commissioner Cascaden?
Not prepared, no, nothing.
Whoa.
Oh. Could I have a pass? Look
Randy?
at my calendar and come right back?
Stated not prepared headline.
Right?
Yeah. The youth commission met with superintendent, the new superintendent, and they had some very nice questions. And I think it was a very good meeting for them to get to know each other. And they had questions about the same thing that we wonder about, is about discipline processes and about cops in the schools. And they provide, as the youth commission always does, some great information for the superintendent to think about. So
It is a wonderful group of young people. It makes me feel optimistic about the future. Yeah. Okay, and I also don't have a board and committee reports, but you will have to suffer through my quote of the week.
if I could add one more thing.
Not a suffer.
I did have the opportunity to talk to a fifth grade class in one of the schools in Rochester, and they had many questions about government and what government does, and they want to know if the commissioners ever talk to anybody important.
We talk to ourselves all the time.
But it was a wonderful opportunity to talk to the fifth graders and introduce them into things that they can prepare themselves for the
Wear
future.
your crown, so they knew you were important.
I did wear my crown, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure we have one other thing to celebrate.
What is that?
The Corn Tower is the
Oh, yes.
21
That's right.
2021 Water Tower of the Year across the nation. Number one.
Was it?
Number one,
Number one. We won the national
I wonder if we
contest.
could
Is it
pull
check
up
in the
that
mail?
video really quick. Has anybody?
Yeah, actually, that's her TikTok.
Yes. Do you
so
know?
the check is in the mail.
Oh, it's really awesome if you
There
just
is
have
an,
a minute.
Rachel did a
You have it?
TikTok video about our
Millions did.
winning Corn Tower that must be seen.
Right.
Hang on, just give us one
Let's share
second.
that.
So we happened to have a Housing Alliance meeting last Thursday, and I encouraged everybody to vote early and to vote
Here it
often.
comes in. I'm
And
forwarding
this
it to
contest
you.
closed on Friday.
It's on TikTok.
And after that
not
meeting,
on
we went from
YouTube.
number 5. We were already number
Yeah,
5.
no,
to number
when I
one.
voted, it was 5.
And we stayed number 1.
Wow.
It's on YouTube too.
You led us to victory.
Well, it was I was using, at the end of it, I sort of felt like I was
Chicago.
Chicago precinct candidate saying, vote early, vote often.
Great.
In my hometown.
Jim Miner revealed that he had multiple email addresses and he would probably use them all. And so
I did. I had a couple of email addresses.
he had a couple emails. See, you're from Chicago. You know this system.
It's Chicago. It's Chicago.
That's Dana, I gotta get out of here.
I'll say it right out.
Right.
We're just about there. Sorry.
Okay.
Gotta see this because
I
it
put
is
this
really
on. I
fun.
put this
We
on
adjourn?
the last minute. Yeah.
Oh,
No, we have a
no,
quote.
no, you're not.
One more pack.
There you go, okay, now go down there, right there, which one's your?
We gonna be here for the cow, or are we gonna go across the
And
street?
John, I hope that you use this, in your promotion of the destination of our community, that we have the best water tower in the nation by popular acclaim.
Yeah, but
Right, and then it should be
No bias involved at all.
yeah, and it has animated water in it.
there we go. And then just gonna move it over.
Dehydrated water.
You're talking to us?
Dehydrated water.
Oh,
It'll dehydrated water.
Constructed
Coming.
What?
It's small, but it is.
All right.
Did you know the Ear of Corn Water Tower in Olmsted County, Minnesota was constructed in 1931 as a nod to one of the 2 main foods that was canned at the Seneca Foods facility in Rochester? The facility was demolished to make way for future redevelopment, but the water tower stood strong and was recently revitalized. It was even chosen as the People's Choice winner in the Water Tank of the Year contest. So let's celebrate! Did you know the Ear of Corn Water Tower in Olmsted County?
Isn't that
That's great.
Huh?
I do like that she said,
Government is flat.
oh, he's in Rochester.
All right.
did she say Olmsted County
Yeah,
was
she
in
said,
Rochester?
instead of Rochester.
Let's hear
Okay.
your quote.
You want to hear my quote?
Yeah.
All right.
Of course.
It's from the Talmud. So it's not as energetic as what we just saw. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Whoa.
Deep.
Deep. Deep thoughts. Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Thank you. And
Are we
where
here,
will
Heidi?
our committee of the whole be? Still here? Let's take an
5.
8-minute break.
I second it. That was good.
Oh my goodness. He's going up for the
issue is not even.
He had to go to his
He asked beforehand. He just didn't.
expressed himself.
I was turning this down.
Yeah,